So the Elon Musk versus OpenAI lawsuit is getting spicier. I have Brian Wong with me today. Brian is a futurist thought leader, and he runs the prominent science blog nextbigfuture.com. There's so much we have to catch up on, not only about the case against OpenAI, but also some interesting tidbits from Elon about FSD, and of course a couple of your articles from your blog. So welcome, Brian. Great to have you back.
Thank you. And great to be here.
Let's start with the spice. The spice must flow, and surely it does. This, of course, is part of the discovery in the case shared by S.E. Robinson Jr. Uh, Unsealed court document in the Musk versus OpenAI lawsuit includes excerpts from OpenAI co-founder Greg Brockman's 2017 personal diary entries. Brockman wrote in September 2017, "This is the only chance we have to get out from Elon. Is he the glorious leader, quote unquote, that I would pick? We truly have a chance to make this happen financially. What will take me to $1 billion?" Oh boy, this is getting spicy. Explain this for my audience, please. What is going on? What is this and the implications?
So at this point, Elon has invested, I think, about $50 million, $40 to $60 million into OpenAI. This has provided about 60% of the funding that they have at this point. This is, well before ChatGPT. They're looking to scale and do things, and they're still nonprofit. And Elon wants them to stay nonprofit, although he's offered them being folded into Tesla in some way to become that. But Brockman, who's co-founder with Sam Altman, he wants to become a billionaire, a valid desire.
Yeah.
But he, I'm not sure how open the discussions were. I think they're probably pretty open. It's like, hey, we're meeting together, we're talking about this stuff, and I want to become a billionaire and all that kind of stuff. And Elon's thinking that it should be the opposite of Google, that Google was closed and not open, and it was for profit and not nonprofit, because he's concerned about where AI goes. And they are getting an opportunity to get funding from other sources, perhaps from Microsoft, other places, to enable them to become what we know they became, right? Where they get to 800 and some billion dollar valuation, and they become a huge company, but they're still not for profit. They have this weird structure that they have in order to kind of like get around the not-for-profit issue. And they want to fully convert to a for-profit company, and that's the lawsuit that Elon's putting out to block them from that.
Yeah. How damaging is this?
I think it clearly shows the intent for them to say, hey, we want to get out from being nonprofit. We want to go back against things that we're promised Elon. But it's, it goes to a jury trial. So, like, what do the individuals, how do they view it, right? How the general public views it may not be aligned with what the individuals do, but presumably you have good lawyers that would then kick out, try to get something neutral. Like you have lawyers on both sides trying to get to a neutral thing. So the question would become, is it okay, based on the jury's thinking, that they were nonprofit and were going against the intent of agreements that they had before? Or do they say, well, you're all big boys, anything goes? It's unclear how that will be settled unless you have everything. But this is clearly evidence that they were planning to do it, they wanted to do it, and then they were violating it and all that kind of stuff.
So is this part of discovery, or are we expecting more documents to come out?
I think this was part of discovery that happened before. So the discovery probably started April last year. And so thus we don't get the diary from Brockman until they ask for it and get that information. So this is being revealed. So it was, based upon verbal discussion that weren't recorded, Elon knew what Brockman and them were thinking, and so then he could say, "Hey, ask them for these documents." I know that Brockman writes his own diary. I want to have that information, right? Or other investigators figure that out. So this is so the secrets clearly were fairly deeply dug into, so we know what it is. So then the question is, now that you have this evidence of this scale, knowing all the conversations, recorded, unrecorded, notes, then now sort it out and determine what contracts are violated, what agreements do or do not hold. And some of the agreements, like he's trying to break up the agreement with Microsoft, between them and Microsoft, that kind of stuff. So basically, like anything that would, it's all out legal war in that the top competitors for AI are XAI, Grok, and Elon. And then you have OpenAI / Microsoft and Microsoft by itself. And you have Google and you have Anthropic. Those are kind of like the main players in all this stuff. And OpenAI is getting more vulnerable. And if they can be slowed down in their fundraising and slow down in the implementation, if they miss a whole generation of being able to make a $200 billion factory, something they want to deploy $1.4 trillion of it, then that would cripple them as a player. It could force them to fall behind, just like Meta has fallen behind, right? So once you fall behind, then you're less relevant. It's tough for you to raise money. So even just slowing them down would be a huge win in the battle that Elon's having with them.
Yeah. I just want to quickly share this latest article from CNBC and TipRanks as well. This is OpenAI warns investors to prepare for deliberately outlandish claims, in quotes, from Elon Musk. And apparently, OpenAI has warned investors and banking partners to prepare for a lot of drama in its legal battle with Elon Musk as it moves closer to trial. And there was a letter sent out on Thursday. The company said it expects Musk to make deliberately outlandish, attention-grabbing claims as the case heads to court in April. By issuing this warning in advance, OpenAI appears to be trying to reassure investors and limit uncertainty. This is especially important given the company's impressive growth in valuation of $500 billion. So they're sweating.
Right. And to the point, like if investors decide, okay, this is something that I need to be worried about, I assign some kind of risk factor, some kind of loss factor to it. All they need to do is, it's difficult enough for them to raise these huge amounts of money, right? Hundreds of billions of dollars, trillions of dollars. They need to raise all this amount of money. And then throwing in any kind of uncertainty or delays because of the lawsuit, that can, make them stumble. It's like, they need to do this big relay race thing in order to like hand off to the next phase, raise money, do stuff. So there's a series of clearly timed steps they need to achieve. And if this scares off some investors or does that, then that can harm them as a competitor, let alone if they lose this case entirely. And the other thing would be that, so one, that's the big slowdown, the competition between the major models. And then not being able to go for profit means that it is hard to raise the money because of the complex structure. And then also it prevents Sam Altman and Brockman from being fully rich, because they probably get like 10-20% or something like that each, right? So they would get like $100 billion versus having only the billions that they have, right? So it's causing multiple problems.
It's not looking good for OpenAI, even on the product front, as you obviously pointed out.
Gemini's getting a lot of traction. XAI is trying to get more traction.
A lot of traction. But the bigger thing for me, the bigger concern, Brian, is when you so this is supposed to be one of the most pivotal year, if not the threshold year for real world AI, whether it's intelligence AI or embodied AI, right? And you're looking at um, real world revenue models,
Hmm.
and subscriptions will just not cut it.
Right, right.
What's OpenAI's differentiator, unique selling proposition in this scenario? How do they
Well,
continue to raise, I mean, the sort of funds for valuations that they've been getting? It's bizarre.
so this goes to something that we'll talk about later, which is that the big goals are solving and making massively more productive coding with AI,
Mm.
and then also accelerating the progress of science and scientific discovery, math, physics, etc. Right? So, and then delivering real world AI. So there's three or four major things that are what the ultimate valuation is. We have enough business improvement, productivity improvement, enough um, research paper usefulness for things to justify, $100 billion or $200 billion per year of revenue and significant profits, which justify the current build. So the people who say that there's going to be a big implosion, I don't think that's the case. And there's significant evidence the that this year we're getting to a large part of the bigger dream of research will be faster, right? And coding will be massively improved. So those will be huge groundbreaking changes that if you get to those major deliverables of superintelligence, then the explosion happens. But then the question is, how much does each get? Does they all do it, or does only one or two do it? And one or two clear leaders in the area that make a difference. That is what we don't know going into 2026 and then 2027.
Yeah, in fact, let me just bring up your article. This is from your blog, nextbigfuture.com, and I'll put a link to this and another
Mhm.
article from your blog that we will discuss. I'll put it below video in the description. This is what you were talking about. AI,
Yeah.
XAI Grok 4.2 and Open 5.2 are solving
OpenAI for
significant,
5.2, yeah, the
OpenAI
GPT.
5.2 are solving significant previously unsolved maths proofs.
Yeah.
Take us through
Yeah, so
this.
this was a Bellman function, which is just complex. It's a lot of stuff, but basically, a paper came from a professor who has early access to Grok 4.20, right? And he says he and a student used it to an important function, is Bellman function, and being able to enhance and do stuff with it is a significant breakthrough. Also, OpenAI GPT 5.2 was solving something called Erdos problems. There's a Hungarian mathematician who was very prolific, and he solved a bunch of problems. He also said there's 1,000 problems that I think are really, really interesting problems, and if we could solve them, that would be a great thing. And so for decades, those problems have been out there. So it's not quite like a Nobel Prize, but it's kind of like a tier down, but it's like beyond regular PhDs, right? It's kind of like this series of from a really smart guy, really smart legendary mathematician, saying, "Here's a bunch of things that would be very useful for us to get," and knocking off some of them. So they basically like one a week that they're getting, perhaps 8 of them. Terence Tao,
Wow.
who is considered one of the greatest mathematicians alive today, who did a bunch of great things when he was like um, a teenager or something like that, in terms of like, you know, winning math Olympiad, I think by the time he was like
Prodigious.
12 or
Yes.
13, prodigious. So he went and validated and said, yeah, some of these things before were just finding solutions that were already out there.
Mhm.
But now they're actually creating new proofs. He also mentioned how it's AIs, I think it's several of the models, can speed up the work. And so it's like you're vibe coding math instead of vibe coding programs. Where it's like I'm
So
just
what you're
yeah,
saying is this is original work done by the
original
AI
work
models, right?
done by AI models.
Wow,
Yes.
because so one of the great filters that we've been talking about for sentience in AI
Mhm.
and superintelligence and general intelligence before superintelligence is the ability to, as Elon has also said, to come up with new science on its own, original,
Right.
right? Is this
Right.
does this qualify as that?
Yeah. It's not completely on its own. Like they're working with mathematicians and stuff to do it, but it is where you're getting additive stuff. It's not just so there's and also there's besides getting to clearly novel, working together, co-working to deliver some new major papers and new major air dose problem level discoveries. Terence Tao also described how they're doing this vibe coding. Vibe coding is where you just talk to it and you make a program like a user interface, make it a small program, a game, right? That's vibe coding. We just like talk to it and it programs by itself. Mathematicians can talk to it and say, hey, I'm working on this paper. Normally I have to change some formula. I made some discovery. Okay, I need to change the formula. It could be like a 200-page paper, right? So now when I change the formula, instead of me doing hours or days trying to make all the adjustments, it can do it instantly, right? So then it can speed up the writing of papers, the description of papers. So it is speeding up mathematical
So it's like
discovery
a
work.
really, really good research assistant.
Multiple really, really good research assistants. That's right. And so like everyone can have a team of like 20 interns or something like that, or postdocs, and then now everything is being sped up that way. And also it's let you do stuff like let me consider 100 different ways we could crack this thing, right? Like I'm working on a really tough problem. I have 100 different possibilities I could do. Not like random, but like using my knowledge of math, I can say, here's reasonable possibilities of what I can go through. And then you can explore that tree of possibilities and then come back with what's most promising and that kind of stuff. So again, it lets you do a directed search of an exploration of which, that could have taken, that could be a lifetime of work for someone to say, okay,
for sure.
I'm going to spend a decade trying to look at 100 different possibilities that are all plausible that I need to try and like check and verify to see what actually works better. And so now AI can speed that up. Again, an army of interns to help you do it.
Promises being fulfilled.
Promises being fulfilled, yes. So if we're already at this level, that means automated mathematical proofs is coming. Other areas like physics, which is highly mathematical, that could happen. You could also see that happening in engineering, or with drug discovery, or with materials discovery. That you could speed up that work, and also the description and dissemination to other people. Saying, hey, here's what it is, and it helps me describe my idea. So you're in the realm of the mathematicians can uplevel themselves into the realm of pure theory, but with enhancement from a team. So it's like expanding the resources and speed of work, which is hugely valuable for the future AI. Like if I need to power this, because this is like not easy work to do, I need to generate billions and trillions of tokens of work in order to make the equivalent of this thing happen. And then, so it's that productivity is happening, and the various large language models, Google Gemini, Grok, GPT 5.2, Anthropic, they're all going to compete to do this thing, and we're pushing into accelerating the science and stuff. And then if I can accelerate AI research, then that's the self-improvement loop where things just go really crazy.
It's pretty crazy how much it's accelerating scientific research and discovery. Just fantastic. And this is just like, what is it, Grok 4.2?
4.20, and then 5 will be out in March, April.
Just it's unimaginable what that's going to be. But to your point, last year I was speaking to Kian, and we just chatted with Kian the other day. Kian Conrad Tauschberg, the founder and CEO of Exlumina. And last year when I chatted with him, he said he was using only Grok because he found Grok to be the best for studying orbital mechanics, because it was just so reliable as opposed to all the other models. And it was really interesting to hear him say that, and then see this now. There appears to be quite an exponential progression as far as Grok is concerned. ChatGPT and others have been up and down. We've seen Claude Code, Vibe Code co-work by itself, which is another stunning development.
Right.
So it's getting pretty serious.
Right. And then the whole thing is like, what is the acceleration? Like this is going exponential. So then if I cut off some monetary resource or limit a monetary resource, like the lawsuit could do, or slow down the deployment of that, because it's like I need to have resources. I need to have money to build the data centers. I need to have the data to power stuff. I need to have better algorithms. So there's these pieces that are going into an engine that's going exponential, right? And self-improving and that kind of stuff. So if I slow up one part, it's like I'm, reducing the oxygen going to a fire, right? And I can make the fire smaller or whatever, and that could be sufficient to determine who wins or who loses.
Yes, indeed. Okay, let's move on. There's this development I've been itching to talk to you about. So this
Mm-hmm.
was from a few days back, the 12th of Jan.
Yeah.
News from Google, joint statement.
Mm-hmm.
Apple and Google had entered into a multi-year collaboration under which the next generation of Apple Foundation models will be based on Google's Gemini models and cloud technology. These models will help power future Apple Intelligence features, including a more personalized Siri coming this year. After
Mm-hmm.
careful evaluation, Apple determined that Google's AI technology provides the most capable foundation for Apple Foundation models and is
Mm-hmm.
excited about the innovative new experiences it will unlock for Apple users. Now, Elon responds to this saying, this seems like an unreasonable concentration of power for Google. And, Brian, we've been chatting on Over the Horizon for the
Mm-hmm.
past year or so about whether Elon's going to build a phone, an X phone, because it just brings together all the platforms. We've been arguing that, I mean, it's time he does that. And I want to just play out this soundbite. Nick Cruz Patane just shared it. Very
Mm-hmm.
interesting because this is Elon Musk last year on Tesla making a phone on the Joe Rogan podcast. Let's listen to this.
That releasing a Tesla phone.
No, we're not doing a phone.
Have you ever thought about it?
I mean, we could do a phone since like we like the operating system in Tesla. It's Linux based, but we've written a massive amount of software on top of that. So like probably Tesla is in a better position to create a new phone that's not Android or iPhone than maybe any company in the world. But it's not something we want to do unless we have to or something.
What would be the situation where you would have to?
Well, I think if Apple and Google / Android, started doing really bad things like, I don't know, like censorship of apps, or I don't know, just treating people like just being like gatekeepers, that in a really bad way, then I guess would make a phone.
Okay, so there you have it. And I want to
Yep.
go back to Elon's post because this is exactly what the context of which he was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
It's clear.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if
Yeah.
he doesn't build a phone now, after having posted this,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what else we expected to make of it.
Yeah. So I think it will happen, but it's a question of timing, because they have the direct to cell phone satellite. They have 650 Gen 2, Gen 1.5 satellites with direct to cell phone, right? So
Yeah.
though they're a slower speed, so they need to get up over
And
this
they've
year.
just got FCC license for a total of 15,000 up, right?
Right, 7,500 more.
But that's
They already had
V2s.
7,500. Yeah, V2s. Yeah, so that I think would be like Gen 3 satellites that they would be putting out there. So that will let them
Wait,
add
let me
more.
get this clear. You're saying that the gap from 7,500 to or 8,000 to 15,000 is going to be filled with V3s?
I think so, because there's some funny nomenclature on it, because they call Gen 2, but then it's called V3. So I don't think, I think Gen 2 is V3 satellite. I think they can put up the V3
Okay.
satellite with it. So it's a question of, because they have
That's
what they
interesting.
refer to FCC around that is, although putting up, say, 500 Gen 2, like version 1.5, like the current, the Gen 2 minis or whatever they have, V2 minis, if that's what they're referring to, because it's a bit of different nomenclature. What they are publicly saying, on their websites and how they describe it, their versioning versus what they describe to Yeah, because they were going to make what is called V3. That was going to be called Gen 2, and then they have V2 minis. So there's the minis versus the full thing. So I'm unclear as to what that is. I believe they can put up either one.
Yeah, I mean, look, if Starship is ready, what is it, IFT 11 or IFT 12 that we're going for
12,
next?
I think up to
12. So
yeah.
either 12 or 13, which is
Yeah.
just a matter of months. If they're
Right.
ready to pump out the V3 satellites, which essentially have been designed for Starship,
Yeah.
why would you put an earlier generation satellite up when you can
Right.
use Starship for that? Right? It doesn't make sense.
Right. Yeah, it doesn't make sense. Yeah, you'd want to go to the big one because it's 20 times the capacity. You definitely want to go to the big ones.
Yeah.
So I'm presuming that this
And
approval
remember, they're in a position where they can afford to have 1 or 2 or 3 unsuccessful launches.
Yeah, many unsuccessful. It doesn't matter. As long as they end up working, then they're fine. Right.
Yeah.
Right. So to your point about launching the phone, until they get up V3 satellites direct to cell phone that are using the new bandwidth that they now have access to from the EchoStar deal, right?
Yeah.
They need to put up new chips in the handset, which are working with Samsung to do that with other providers, and they need to get up the new satellites. So the current satellites don't cut it, right? They need to have new transmission gear, other stuff to do the new stuff, and they have to have new phones, chips to receive it. So whether they are working with Samsung, it's provided by other companies, right? They're at least at the point of the Google Pixel Android thing, where Google would make a reference phone, and then other people would do it, right? So they're at least making a lot of the internal guts of it needs to have this in order to work with our system. So they're at least 40% of the way there, making the core components that are needed. One, core infrastructure and core components that are needed to do this thing, right? Pushing further forward would be that in order for them to not worry about picking off partners, right? Scaring them away and saying, hey, I'm going Pixel and I'm going to prioritize that versus Android. So they're similar to Google in terms of like how much they're doing on, because they have to do a lot of the hardware for the other people to copy, right? And then to license from them. And then the question of like, do I step over and how much do I push my own phone, right? If they have partners to do it, then that ecosystem might work out better initially. The only time you cross over would be when they have enough stuff to say, and now I make hundreds of millions of my own phone, right? Because it's no good for them just to only make a few million or 10 million of their phones. They need to be able to come up big. What? I'm thinking it would be. I think that would be a 2028 thing where they're ready to pull the trigger to go big and scale. Because they need to either have partners or
even if it's just for America, continental America, to serve continental America.
Again, they need to come out hard and big and have a full strategy. They can't come out with if I'm doing a D-Day invasion and I'm going to go big on my own thing, I need to come with 200,000 troops. I can't hit the beaches with 5,000 guys, right? Because I need to attack something, right? So in order to have a strategic assault that would work, right, they need to come up big. And just coming up with a phone and doing like a million phones, they could do that, but it would not be strategically useful for them to do it because they can work with other partners on it themselves, right? So they have to have a strategy where and I come out big with a massive launch. I need to go full Huawei, 300 million phones, 200 million phones. I need to have a relevant number where it's okay that I lose other partners. Because right now, other partners scared them anyway, right? Like AST Space Mobile is launching their stuff. Like AT&T is working with them. Verizon's working with them, right? And they have more bandwidth borrowed from AT&T and them. So they were worried about that. They have twice to 3 times as much bandwidth even after the EchoStar deal, right? But those guys will only have 60 satellites up by the end of this year if everything goes as planned, right? So versus SpaceX can get up 10 times 20 times as many satellites in comparison to those. So it's a matter of being able to do it at scale, right? In the meantime, they can push with their partners to do it. It's a question of like, so there's a bunch of players that are involved.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, frankly, I am so surprised that this post from Elon has not created as much buzz as I thought it would. I don't know if a lot of people have kind of missed the implications because of, I mean, this just underlines the argument that Elon has been thinking about this for a while.
Yeah.
And obviously, he doesn't want to take on another project unless he absolutely has to. But if he does, he plays to win. As he often says, he loses a few battles, but he always wins the war.
Well, the other thing is that they don't have, all the marketing, distribution, other things like that, right? It's not just making a lot of the phones. You have to like get people to buy them. So that means I need to have. I guess I have my own network.
I don't think there'll be any shortage of customers for an X phone, because it's. I mean, look at the proposition, the value proposition. You literally have a phone that brings together the entire economy on one device, right? And that device serves you everywhere on Earth.
Right. But the other thing would be that he was just doing a Me Too phone, but with my own back end, right? That I think is less interesting than him coming up with an entirely new version of it, saying it's an AI first phone, right? That's what we talked about, edge device, AI first phone, right? So if has the AI to deliver it, then it becomes a huge success because he wants to have something that's clearly differentiated, right? So an AI first phone is what he wants to do. And the other thing would be that with bots can also, humanoid bots, they can also be the next level personal device. So you have smartphones, you have iPads, you have laptops, and then an entirely new form factor of a humanoid bot, right?
Yeah.
A humanoid bot can have 20 times, 100 times the compute power and memory of these other things. And it can just walk around and you can talk to it. So the weight of it being 40 pounds, 40 kilograms is, I wouldn't be able to carry that around, to the whole server, right? But it's a walking server, right? That has these other things. So it's clearly differentiated, right? It's like it's doing something completely different. So I see him wanting to do completely differentiated products. So one, several paths to it, and simultaneously is the humanoid bot is the AI next level personal device, not like phone, but an AI first phone, AI first personal device, and then a phone that will also be a AI first personal. So he's going to go AI first as a product, differentiated from previous products. Like I'm not going to make, Apple wasn't going to make a better flip phone with a better back-end partner. They have to come with, I'm going to converge things into a smartphone that can bind a bunch of things into it. Now with AI, how does that change the smartphone? How does it change that as a device? So one would be bigger, way more compute, way more memory, walking around in a humanoid bot. The other would be some ultra light system. Ultra light meaning like less hardware, which you talked about on the Joe Rogan thing. A very light, only as a means to pass through.
Basically, a screen.
The AI cloud, a portal into the AI cloud.
Into the AI cloud. Yeah.
Right, and then all the apps and other things would go away. So he would. That's how I see him differentiating. So you have that edge device, powered and accessed through.
But my point is, does he need to wait for AI to reach that level to launch a phone? I think not.
No, he doesn't. But then it goes to the construction partner that he wants to come out with 100 million, 1 billion of these devices with sufficient partners to do it. So he's gathering his forces. If you think of like a, beginning a Gladiator or something like that, where you have the Roman army, gathering its forces and ready to launch, catapults of fire and all something like that. He's gathering his forces for an assault against an entrenched enemy.
Yeah, and I suppose I mean, strategically, it wouldn't be wise to signpost that. So
Right.
if you're really going to bring something like that, you need to kind of keep it on the down low to
And,
such
and
time
also,
that you're ready.
he's willing to work with people who are willing to work with him. He needs to gather, just like Apple and Google work together. He wants
Yeah.
to get allies on his side to go do this thing.
But the thing is that not many people see him as allies. They see him as, everybody sees him as competition.
Because he is going to potentially become such a powerful force as these things
Exactly.
develop.
Exactly.
But I think more should consider how to work with them. Like if I'm
Yeah.
looking at my strategy, if I'm having this big company, I'm thinking about, there's a choice of like partnering with others to fight them, or there's the strategy of, working with them.
Yeah.
And
I
I'm
mean, look at
surprised that,
FSD. I
right.
mean, he had it open. The even open source like the the engineering models for the cars, everything. I mean, he's even the charging stations. It's just I don't know. It's just so weird that people kind of don't
Well,
want
the
to
thing
work
is
with.
that they didn't have, the old line car companies did not have the technological foundation in order to be a good partner. Like he said, some of them wanted to do it, but they weren't able to go scale. They were saying, okay, I will do one model out 5 years from now, right? Which would be like 10,000, 50,000 units per year. It's like, well, that doesn't do anything for me. I'm making like a few million, 2 years or something like that, right? So, and then they all wanted help. But, oh, you need to give me over the updates, and you give me this and that because I can't do it myself. It's like, it's like a horse and buggy company saying, like, help me make, the carburetors and the other things. It doesn't work.
Okay, so let's take a look at another post this week from Elon. Pretty interesting, controversial in some ways. Saying Tesla will stop selling FSD after the 14th of February. FSD will only be available as a monthly subscription thereafter. Oh boy.
Yeah, so basically this is them Tesla getting full control over their pricing for FSD. So by having people being able to buy it totally, then that they can't change and adjust the pricing as they need to. It's also a bit more difficult for them to, but not impossible for them to have, you know, multiple tiers and stuff. It just gives them dynamic control over the pricing. If you're doing an Airbnb model where you're doing it as a business, I'll charge you more. So if you change from I'm buying it using it for my car for one thing versus I'm buying it using it for something else, then they can get differential pricing in there by controlling what you do. So you don't have full ownership of it. You can't just do whatever you want with it. I think it's basically that if you owned it, you could just do Robotaxi and then make $40,000,
Yeah,
$50,000 per year. So it's just
yeah. I think it's a signal. It's a signal
yeah,
that FSD is nearing um, readiness for unsupervised rides.
yeah, yeah. I think it's clearly indicating that they're gearing up in the next few months to have that happen and happen at scale.
Yeah. And do you think all that would remain would be the federal legislation, regulation for autonomous vehicles, which again is in progress?
Right. But then they're allowed to do certain states. They have permission on certain states. They can do anything they want in Texas, Nevada, Arizona. So there's other places they can go even before that.
Okay.
But then having a broader federal regulation would be a good thing to have.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh wow, that's an important signpost from Elon then.
Yes,
Yeah,
it is.
this could we could see the robotaxi network blow up in February. But then would this also? So I don't suppose he would open it for private cars, the robotaxi network, not just yet, right?
Yeah. It's generally he signaled that would be 6 to 18 months after the
Right, because you
broader.
need all the supporting infrastructure
Right.
for keep the cars clean, etc., etc.
Right.
Charging
And
stations.
then a lot more charging, a lot more
Yeah,
other things. Yes, there's a lot more support to it. And they want to make sure, again, that they do it at some scale, 1,000, 10,000 vehicles, before they say, okay, now potentially 1,000,000 vehicles can do it, right? They
right.
need to look at kind of scale up that point.
Yeah, but Tesla could so easily just divert a lot of the production of Model Ys to the robotaxi network.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so they can
You're not
easily
expecting Cybercab till what, April?
April, right?
Yeah.
And then wouldn't be scaled until maybe 3 months thereafter, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but they can, if they're putting that car production over to it, they can easily do 100,000 per month. I think they
Which is
can
a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, but so I think how many states can they roll it out in immediately? Is it 3 or 4? And how many cars would you need to saturate the market in those states?
I think they have there's 3 or 4 that they're already operating in California, they're operating in Texas. They have advanced approvals in Arizona, Nevada, and Florida, right? So they can get to 8 different states, and then there's about another 7 that are pretty open, just a matter of just applying. If you're willing to take the risk, they can do it. So they could do 15 states. That would be probably about half the population of the United States. I think they talked about that. Half the population of the United States they can get to, right? So they can get to about 150 million, which would be millions of cars per year. It would a sufficient market to do that. If there was no overall federal legislation that's saying you're not allowed to do this thing, but I'm pretty sure that, and it's signaled by the administration, by Trump, by Lutnick, etc., that if you start showing this robotaxi thing, they will then clear out the legislation to make it happen. So if they start scaling and do, okay, we allow you to do 10,000 and you fill it up, they'll say, okay, yeah, keep going. Don't slow down.
I was just looking for a rough estimate on the number of ride-hailing cabs that exist right now in America across states. I think it's in the ballpark of about 200,000 plus.
Of ride share, the Waymo type things, or just Uber?
No, I mean just Uber and Lyft and others.
Okay, so Uber has about 6 million drivers and cars, but I think that's worldwide. So I think the U.S. operation is about 1.5 to 2 million total, and then it overlaps with Lyft, where you see people doing Lyft and Uber.
Yeah.
And some that only do Lyft. So I would ballpark it about 2 million rideshare vehicles in the United States, and they're doing about for the Uber part, I think it's about probably 30, 40 billion.
200,000 to 300,000 per state on average.
Per state?
If you divide them.
Per state. Oh, well, probably again you have.
I'm trying to get a sense of the numbers that you need to saturate a state with robotaxis.
It depends on which state. So if you're talking about California or Texas, they have like 30 million to 40 million people. So that's like in the range of 10% in the United States. So saturating the big states would be about 200,000 to 400,000 vehicles. Although you could do that because you can get more utility out of your vehicles. You could do that with 1/3 that. So 100,000 could be pretty good saturation of a state. Wow. And then smaller states probably have like 5,000, 10,000.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Depending on the population and the.
But then that saturation up to the level of Uber. But think I'm going to drop prices from $2 to $3 per mile down to $1 per mile. Yeah. So then that would expand the market by 10 times. So then I need 10 times as many in order to.
And then it start eating up into private vehicle ownership as well, because if you have a robotaxi at your beck and call at any time of day or night, why would you own it?
Right. So significant saturation at the $1 level probably needs about 10 million vehicles. So you want to have
America,
across America, and then you want to have the trillion miles or so roughly that you want to deliver. So that'd be $1 trillion that you'd be doing.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to watch this evolve. It's going to have so many impacts.
Yeah.
Okay, let's shift gear, and we've got some interesting posts from Aaron Burnett of Mark 33 to discuss. This was regarding SpaceX. He says $30 billion from a SpaceX IPO should be viewed as a time compression tool. SpaceX generates meaningful cash, so IPO capital pulls forward existing compounding loops rather than unlocking new programs. With this in mind, we believe the use of funds for most likely falls into these four buckets. Number one,
Mhm.
Starship manufacturing infrastructure. Two, Starship vehicle production. Three, Starlink V3 satellite build-out. Four, Starthink orbital AI compute. And then there's another post from him where, let me just share this. He says, financial circles have gone from mocking orbital data centers to quietly dismissing them as a 2030s um, pipe dream behind closed doors. Few are noticing China historically, a second mover, is already ahead in orbital compute in key ways. They've launched Pathfinder satellites for 2,500 satellite three-body computing constellation, whereas Beijing Astrofuture proposes a 16 gigawatt architecture in the narrow dusk dawn SSO slice. It's rare for a backend player to make SpaceX's orbital compute plans look modest. They lack US innovation breadth, but orbital compute, similar to the energy generation edge, thrives on centralized strategy with massive capex. Okay, so take us through your thoughts, Brian.
Okay, so we look at this post. So one, I believe that SpaceX IPO could raise more funds. That I think they need to get not so much. He talked about pulling forward the unit costs as a kind of like a capex spend of the starships and the and some of the factories for the Starship production, as well as the V3. So he talks about like calculating how many units of rockets that they make, and saying, okay, we make 60 or 100 starships, and we buy 10,000 satellites. That's what we spend the $30 billion on, which they are profitable now, so they can pay for certain other things. So he's looking at the costs that are more easily understood by people. But I believe that the launch infrastructure is also a more important thing. So there you need to build more launch towers, right? Get those approved. So accelerate construction at Cape Canaveral to get more launch towers going there. And it's not just a launch tower, which itself might be only $100 million, $300 million or less, because they're launch towers so relatively simple. But they need to make the tank farms for the natural gas and the fuel. They need to get delivery of it because they want to scale up. So if they have 200 launches of Starship versus 200 launches of Falcon 9, they need to have 5 times as much fuel. And then if I make 50 Starships and super heavies, then and I launch them 20 times a year each, right? Like twice a month or something like that. Then I would have 500 launches, right?
Yeah.
So
You need the
correct?
ground infrastructure ready for that, which is massive.
You need to have the ground infrastructure equal to that. Yeah. And then you need to have the factories that are beside it that are producing things.
Yeah.
So those are some things that matter. I believe that getting to, like, we're just short of 200, 170 launches of Falcon 9, right? And they have approvals to go up to about 200 launches of Starship, like 150, something like that. But a few more
A year.
approvals they can expand
Per
per
year.
year, right?
Yeah.
From existing facilities, right?
Yeah.
So then they are working on going from 3 launch towers to 6. So then potentially they could go to 400 per year. And if I up the intensity and launch more frequently, then I can get to 800 to 1,000 launches per year. But I need to then have not just, so in order to do that, 1,000 launches per year, if I have, um, 40 um, of starships and super heavies, I could launch twice per month and get up to about like 25. I'd be at my 1,000 launches per year, right? So I only need about 50, and I can get to 1,000 launches per year. But I need to then have 20 times, 25 times the fuel facilities in order to fuel those launches and
To support it.
fuel for the methane, and then also the liquid oxygen.
Yeah.
So you need to scale those things up in order to enable this launch cadence. And then the reliability has to be there. So that's
Right.
how good it is in order to not interfere with air traffic around Florida, right?
Yeah.
I need to get that reliability up there. So it's a bunch of things that way. But in terms of the scaling up I see launch towers, tanker facilities being needed to be built. They were probably only looking to go to 100 to 200 launches of, let's see, if I have 200 launches, 60 satellites, 100 satellites, that could launch 20,000 satellites, the V3s per year, which would get me over 3
Let
years
me just
to the
bring up your tab here.
yeah. So I'm saying that getting to 200 launches per year in 2027 was probably the original goal, and it's probably also something that's relatively easy to do. I mostly replace my Falcon 9 launches with Starship launches. I'm moving over my 150 launches that Starlink was using from Falcon 9. So they're the main customer that moves over to use, instead of Falcon 9, they move over to use Starship, right? Because of the 170 launches, 150 is SpaceX launching their own Starlink, right?
Yeah.
So they can move over and say, okay, I'm shifting over. You other guys aren't ready to move over. You haven't designed satellites for the new rocket, which are bigger and various other changes they would have.
Yeah.
I'm ready to move, so I'm going to move over and then be my own launch customer, right?
Do we know, Brian? Have we got any indication of whether they're prepping for this massive onslaught of manufacturing for V3?
If they're doing this build out to say, okay, one, I want to have 50,000 satellites for V3. I haven't been fully FCC approved, but I want to be ready to go once I get the approval. They would be in talks. They would know, okay, I'm close to the approvals. So then,
Exactly.
everything about what they do, they need to at least make the same 500 or 15,000 V3s that they're going to be approved for the high-speed internet and for direct-to-cell phone, right? So they haven't been approved for direct-to-cell phone. They've only got high-speed internet. So that 7,500 that they got approved from the FCC, they need to be able to make those 7,500. So being able to make 7,500 V3s
So
this year.
the direct to cell is something that they could just turn on later, couldn't they?
No, because the
On
direct
the
to
same
cell,
hardware? No? Same satellite hardware?
no. The hardware is different. The direct to cell versus high speed internet hardware is different. Different transmitters, different. There's differences in the hardware. Also, they want to put the direct to cell phone in a different orbit than high speed internet, so they can put it into a lower orbit than the high speed internet. So that's why they say, hey, I want to put 15,000 over here and not 100 miles higher.
Okay. So the high-speed internet orbit is low because you need to be low enough for low latency. High-speed
Right.
internet,
But the direct to cell phone is even lower.
even lower. Wow. Okay,
Even
so
lower.
that means you'd have a much larger number of satellites from the constellation degrading over time, and unless they keep constantly kind of, which obviously they will, but raising the orbit to maintain functionality.
No. They want to keep going closer because they can launch so cheaply. For them, it's like, other people would say, oh, like AST Space Mobile, we're going to launch 240 satellites. They're bigger, they're going to be higher, right? And then we get the coverage, right?
Yeah.
SpaceX
Yeah,
says,
because
screw
we're going to
that.
widen a shadow for each satellite. Yes.
Right. We're going to go to 15,000. We go lower, and we'll have to have 10 satellites versus your one. But I'm okay having 10 times, 20 times more satellites. Yeah.
Yes.
So they want to get closer and closer. They have no monetary
Concerns or limitations.
launch barriers to going more dense. Yes.
Yeah.
Other than the FCC has to approve it. Right.
Yeah. Which, I mean,
Yeah.
shouldn't be a
Right.
problem.
Right. Okay. So
Okay.
then I think that they will be not just the SpaceX manufacturing, which again is not that big a deal. It's like making 50. They already have comparable numbers with the Falcon 9, right? So then, especially if I increase my reuse rate, like if I can launch, they launch right on the tower. So instead of taking 2 weeks to 8 weeks to relaunch my Falcon 9 booster, because it lands out onto a drone ship, the fastest
Yeah.
they've turned around, I think, in like 8 days. I can launch same day, so I can get
Yeah.
5 times more
You just bring
usage
it back
out
to
of
the
it.
tower, refuel
Right.
it, and up it goes.
Right. So then theoretically, I could get like 50 launches. The upper stage I will have to come back. So they have to have more starships because the upper stage going to orbit it's going to have to go around the Earth before it can land in the right spot again.
Yeah.
So it could, if we've gone for 2 days, the booster, it can come back in 6 minutes.
Fewer boosters, yeah.
So fewer boosters, right?
Yeah.
But so the construction of, because they have such high reuse, the construction of the starships and the boosters is not that big a deal. If I have full reuse and I'm not destroying them, then I can. That will be a very low cost. Yeah.
I think people still haven't quite kind of generally got the sense of how much of a step up this is going to be in the cadence of launches, because once you have reliable, frequent reusability, you don't need as many boosters and starships to get that many launches.
Right. Yeah, because I'm reusing it all the time. And just like a airline company that's launching twice a day with their Airbus or their Boeing planes, right? They don't need, they can get by with, like 100 planes or 20 planes, something like that, and have thousands of flights. Right.
Yeah,
So going to my thing is that the key for them, so if 200 is relatively straightforward in terms of getting to that number of launch capability, then they want to grow double or quadruple every year. And then if in the my low case of 200, 400, 800, 200 launches in 2027, 400 launches in 2028, 800 launches in 2029, which the same, if I'm not losing any starships, just increasing the launch cadence can achieve that. So I just need to have the fuel supply and the air traffic clearance to do those launches, right? Then if I have the factories to make these things, whether I'm launching 7.5 megawatts per launch, so basically about 50 satellites that have 150 kilowatts each, that'd be 7.5 megawatts. 10.5 gigawatts of over 3 years, that's still a huge number, right? That if I could have that dedicated for my AI data centers, and I'm assuming separately I'm doing launches for the high-speed internet, 500 launches for all my high-speed internet, all my direct cell phone, then, at that 7.5 megawatt per launch, 10.5 gigawatts, it would cost them $8.4 billion, but it would cost someone else like $500 billion, right? About $5 million, including the chips. So the chips I still need to pay for, but
but then with the terafab, that's going to change.
Right. But it'd be still $100 billion or more for the power systems, the grid, all the other things. So, and then just being able to do it, put it up there instead of leaving it down here, is worthwhile. So just getting to that level of capability of 10 gigawatts over 3 years would be a huge achievement. And then if I can improve from a version 3 to a version 4 and launch 240 tons instead of 120 tons, or do other things with launch cadence, then going to 63 gigawatts, that will be close to the level of install for the rest of the world on the ground over the next few years. That's the projection going forward. So it doesn't take SpaceX that much in terms of number of ships. It's more the limitations on factories to make those satellites, because they need to go from only 50,000 satellites to 500,000 satellites, right?
Yeah.
If I'm going to put up 50 gigawatts, I need to put up like hundreds of thousands of satellites. So it's launch facilities and even more production of satellite production that are the limiting factors, less the Starship itself.
Yeah.
And I need to up the intensity of my usage of those Starships. And then talking about the Chinese guys, they were talking about doing 16 gigawatts by 2035, right? And actually, they may even be that they only want to get their first gigawatt up by 2035, right? So their time frames, again, are like just promising a number. It's like, oh, how long does it take you to do it? And that's if they hit their targets, right? So not ahead. Just because I put out a press release doesn't put me ahead, right? So they actually have to do it, and they haven't launched. They've launched some prototype things, but that's again not ahead. It's like, can you scale? Because SpaceX has 650 V2 minis that are delivering direct to cell phone, right? Versus, nothing commercial from AST Space Mobile, yet. They just got their first commercial. They had 5 prototypes up there. They didn't have, their operational system, and they can't provide limited capability until the end of this year if they get 60 satellites up out of the 240, right? So again, competition, like, are you actually offering service? SpaceX is able to race and deliver service and capability at hundreds of satellites and thousands of satellites.
It's kind of like Waymo and Robotaxi
Right.
all over again.
Right. That's right.
Just because you're first up there doesn't mean that in the long run you're going to be the winner.
Mhm.
It's going to be interesting. Okay, let's move on. There's another article from your blog that caught my attention. Thanks for sharing it.
Mhm.
This is interesting. Startup substrate could enable the age of X-ray lithography for sub-nanometer chips. A lot of big words. Break it down.
Yes. So lithography is where we use light to print the semiconductor chips. You shine the light through, and then the shorter the wavelength, the narrower the wavelength, the smaller the feature size I can get. So the more transistors I can put onto my chip. So the big breakthrough that we had, with the West had a few years ago, was to get extreme ultraviolet. So regular light is up around 200 nanometers, 300, 400 nanometers, depending on the color, and then extreme ultraviolet gets us down to 13.5 nanometer wavelengths, right? So this is the advantage that we have over China, was to go to extreme ultraviolet. One thing is that these feature sizes, we talk about 2 nanometer chips now. 2 nanometer chips are not actually 2 nanometer feature sizes. The smallest feature on a chip used to be what we talked about, but they then started changing into a marketing term, where it's like the 2 nanometers is if the chip I was making was using planar technology, the old school technology that was scaling before, but instead we've gone more vertical. We've gone to gate all around and stuff like that. Anyway, still smaller is better. Smaller is better. So what's beyond extreme ultraviolet? That's X-ray. X-ray is beyond the extreme ultraviolet. So now, but how do I generate X-ray? Like, to generate extreme ultraviolet, I need to create a hit like mercury or some other metal, and then I hit it with a laser, and then I generate the wavelengths. Here, they create a particle accelerator in order to generate the X-rays that will do it. And there's multiple companies, substrate, inverse semiconductor, X-Light, that are working on these X-ray sources. So they're about 5 years away from a commercial system. Substrate claims that they have generated 12 nanometer features. So roughly in the range of an advanced chip. You really need to get around 7 nanometers to 3 nanometers to kind of like be advanced, but they're in the range of doing something interesting with it. So that means they've solved a lot of things. Substrate wants to do a vertical stack where they change all the other parts and do a full fab of it. X-Light and Inversion want to just create light sources that then, a component that works with TSMC and Samsung fabs or ASML. So be a component supplier rather than doing the full stack. But the point would be that within 5 years or so, we can get to the next level of chips and get to smaller feature sizes for it. They've claimed to get to 0.25 nanometer of accuracy across the wafer. So that consistency is something that you can conceivably get to true sub-nanometer feature sizes.
And that's
possible.
But is that high dependability? Because then you have a lot of chips that would need to be tossed away if you don't get
right. There's issues around that you're getting into quantum effects when you're getting that small quantum effects cause errors and that kind of thing. So there's huge technological lifts. It's not just simply just shrinking it all down. So there's shrinking down, making everything else work with it. So these are huge challenges. But
and also don't forget that when you build the fabs and the factories where these chips are produced, you need to be able to find just the right environment. You can't have any sort of, you can't of course clearly build it in an earthquake prone zone. Just the slightest vibrations could just pour water
Missing
on
them.
all your plants. Yeah, just
Right.
messing up the
The counter to all this thing is that Elon has said that you may not need to go down to even below 2 nanometer. That maybe you can get by without that. So the question is, our previous discussion about how many chips you can make is like,
Yeah.
if you have good enough chips at the 2 nanometer level and can make enough of them, I can make 100 times
Yeah.
more. That could be more useful than going down these feature sizes, because the physics of it, unless you change what you're building, is that you can only get another double in energy efficiency, even as I
Yeah.
shrink down in feature size,
Yeah, the cost
because of the
benefit
physics.
ratio isn't attractive.
Right. It's not contracted at the same level.
Yeah.
But clearly, it is useful. If everything else be equal, I can get smaller. I want to be smaller, right? But just that everything may not be equal. So it's
But then again, I mean, if you take these chips to space for orbital AI data centers, let's say 10 years,
yeah,
or 15 years,
yeah.
there are there's they need to be space hardened. There's radiation, a lot of other factors that come into play.
So right now we're going without space hardening, so
Yeah.
radiation hardening. Up until now we have, but the new wave is to not radiation harden the chips. They just live with the errors. It's like I have one error in 10 million. I just software correct it and just deal with it, as opposed to losing 100x on efficiency and cost by doing all the hardening, right? And doing the delays, right? So there's a lot of moving parts on these things, but having smaller feature sizes, having this capability will be useful at some point. Question is, economically, when did it take over? But and they would, having it kind of work in 5 years versus perfected. You may, in order to get a lot of it switched over, like it took a long time for us to switch over to EUV, right?
Yeah.
It was like a whole step change. It was not just EUV's here, great, let's roll them in, roll the other things out. No, it's over 5 to 10 year shift. Like, and also these semiconductor fabs, they cost 20 to $30 billion. They'll cost $50 billion. So it's the shift is very
It
difficult.
has to be a viable investment proposition.
Right. The potential, though, is that these things could reduce the cost of the fabs by 10 times, 100 times. So that is the other factor that'd be more important, is that if it all works as described, it could reduce the cost of the fabs, reduce the cost of the wafers, right? So potentially by making it less complex, I don't have to do 20 different layers, because I can, because I'm working at the edge of my capability.
Yeah.
I have to do 4 layers. I want to print a line here and a line over here, and then I can only do one every 4 lines, and I need to have another mask that fills in. So I'm doing the skipping around, and everything about it is more complex because I'm at the edge. If I can just go straight image and get 10 times more resolution on it, then I can, the advantage is I can skip out all this complexity. I don't have to do multi-layer. I don't have to do 20 different masks. I don't have to do all this stuff.
Yeah.
So the simplification potential.
And you reduce potential errors as well.
Right. Reduce potential errors. Right. So having that capability of going direct to ultra high resolution. The claim is, though, that the critics say, okay, we're direct writing these things. We had the ability to direct write before with electron beams. Can I get the volume production up? Because I need to produce 1 million wafers. I need to produce 1 billion chips, right? So if I can't do it fast enough, then it's not economic. It's only for some niche application where I must have the size, right? To be a general solution, it has to have the volume, because I need to have that many chips. If I can't make that many, then you're a sideshow, right?
Yeah.
So,
there's a lot of moving parts here.
yeah.
But anyway, so you see this in the next 5 to 7 years?
Starting.
Starting.
Right. Starting.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, but it also shows that capability is beyond. And the other thing is that, in this whole exponential thing, if I have AI helping me to figure out all the little problems in implementation, maybe things can be implemented faster if we have,
for sure, of course.
Yeah.
Exciting times.
Yes, exciting time.
Yeah, I think by the end of this year itself, as we enter 2027, we won't recognize the world as we know it today. Can you
Right.
imagine what the world will be like in 5 to 7 years when these potentially are available for use?
Well, I think it's gonna be like the picture in the background, a lot of space.
A
lot
lot
of
of
space.
space, indeed, indeed.
A lot of space. A lot of space, a lot of AI. That's what the world's gonna be. A lot of space, a lot of AI.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Brian. We've covered
Thank you.
so much.
Yeah.
Absolutely loving our chats. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
taking the time. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Bye bye.